Good evening and welcome to Undaunted Weekly Recap. I am Star Smart. It's a time when we summarize the highlights from the weekly news bulletin.
One of the major highlights of the Undaunted weekly news briefings was the phone of Big Babanki, who brought La Republic du Cameroon terrorist military into his fandom for purported security purposes, but instead increased the insecurity and, most surprisingly, reduced the number of his fandom population as the forces of La Republic du Cameroon ended up killing more than protecting anyone. The traditional ruler regrets confirming that more atrocities in Big Babanki have reached alarming proportions.
Well, this week on Undaunted, there seem to be frequent reports on civilian murder by the La Republic forces alongside the valiance of the Amazonian Restoration Forces. Before we bring you the recap proper, let's take the fresh reports of today.
Just after the break.
Our vision in this interim government is to make ABC a leader and a real war horse of our struggle. We want to grow it, expand it, hire and train more hands, and broadcast round the clock, around the world, and take command of the media space of this world.
You can enjoy all round the clock, 24/7 exclusive moments of bliss as an ABC Amba TV Club member. A cappella. Latest Nigerian/African movies, global politics, ABC Amba News and updates, historical documentaries, and lots more. In our daily programs, we have Undaunted, ABC Amba News, bringing into the news untold stories with Onyi Okpala and Star Smart. Exclusive discussion, revolutionary panel conversation, infotainment, edutainment, intro governmental debates on topical issues with Tar Paddy King, State of the Liberation Movement, fronting IG and people of Ambazonia's position, the Struggles Weekly Update with Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, FASC, Health is Wealth, Health Education and Awareness within the Ambazonian Community with Dr. Yaya, Liberation Prayer, an intercessory ministry for Ambazonia with Pastor Victor Amba, Our Freedom, spiritual awareness and education for the Ambazonian community with Pastor Victor Amba and Pastor Commando, Church and Politics, neutralizing the myths and preconceived religious and political philosophies that limit the Christian involvement in the realms of decent politics with Pastor Commando, The Horizon, the voice of the Ambazonian woman with Dr. Patience Abiedo and Lady Casey, Our Amber History, bringing to limelight the hidden history of Ambazonia to the world with Pastor Commando, Appointment on Community Education on Patriotism within the Ambazonian communities with Ma Rachel Itatima, Ethics for an Imagined Nation, Watchdog of Basic Principles and Morals of a Nation at War with Ma Dorothy Ngwa. Upcoming programs: Pigeon News, Vernacular Talk Show, County Roots, Activists Corner, Amba Focus, only on ABC Amba Television. We the people, the voice of the voiceless. For 24/7 access, subscribe as a club member on www.abcambatv.com/subscribe.
Oh, you're welcome back. The aging La Republic du Cameroon colonial administrators have no conscience. There is no peace for the younger generation in their agenda. The high level of employment in the Cameroons, the bad roads, and the poor living conditions of a greater majority of the population, not living out the devastating consequences of the ongoing war in Ambazonia. An administrator is requesting that a sum of 120 million francs CFA be disbursed for his new service car. In the midst of all of this chaos, you can imagine what he's asking for. This can come from members of a poor government whereby personal interests have more considerations than public interest. It is only peculiar to a corrupt government like that of La Republique du Cameroon that a minister's wife will set billions on fire just to cover the dirtiness of the husband.
The colonial agent regime of Paul Biya is a little too self-centered or whole self-centered. They prefer emptying state coffers and treating themselves in foreign hospitals instead of equipping local hospitals to the standard they run abroad to get. The president of the Colonial Economic and Social Council is requesting the sum of 120 million francs CFA for a service car. This is coming at a time that he has been occupying this post for over 30 years and counting. Shockingly, the colonial presidency has given an accord of the disbursement of this ridiculous sum for the service car.
Are facing at a time when the Cameroons are facing diverse crises, bringing infrastructure, political and economic, and a drastic drop in standard of living. La Republique du Cameroon government authorities prefer spending huge sums of money for the acquisition of luxurious properties instead of brainstorming on how to use the billions of francs CFA for the well-being of citizens who battle daily for survival. What currently preoccupies them is to buy a posh service car for the colonial president of the Economic and Social Council, Ayang Luke, to the tune of 120 million francs CFA.
Well, a leaked document from the Colonial Minister of Economy, Planning and Regional Development, Alamein Ousmane, May sent to the presidency has revealed that the purchase of the car needs the approval of the Secretariat. The communique asked him to ensure the application of the colonial head of state high instruction as found on the reference order for the financing and acquisition of the said vehicle. The poor, unfortunately, are finding it really hard as the leaders do not care about their own standard of living, but instead theirs.
All right, I'm moving on. Roads in Ambazonia leave nothing to be desired of. Hypocritically, the Colonial La Republique du Cameroon government officials hold a slogan living together. Meanwhile, only La Republique du Cameroon and of the Cameroons is eaten the nation with no crumbs falling for the southern Cameroons. All Ambazonia and those of the northern zone in particular enjoy roads from the dictator BS government. The promise of the construction of a ring road in the northern zone of Amazonia, which President Paul Biya promised or used to win the love of the people of southern Cameroon, is today one of the reasons he has been vomited by the people of southern Cameroon.
Well, the stretches of road making up the ring road is making life hell for the people of Amazonia. The savannah and midland zones, particularly, the road leading out of Womb is a major problem. Circulation is being halted and vehicles cannot also brave the mud. The only way out for Amazonia to enjoy what others are enjoying in different countries in the century, like a good road network, is to be independent of La Republic. Two cannot move together unless they agree. Parting ways has been said to be the only option when there is no agreement.
While an assistant driver of a Toyota pickup vehicle has died as a result of the bad Bamenda home stretch of road, this is an accident that could have been avoided but for bad roads. When will Amazonians enjoy good road is the question we are asking. Well, one person has died as a result of an accident on the Bamenda home road. Report says the young man who was the assistant driver of a Toyota pickup vehicle died when the vehicle hit him against the wall. Though the circumstances surrounding the incident remains a mystery, Undaunted gathered that the deplorable state of the road contributed to the death of this victim.
Well, a native of Womb, familiar with the story, says we heard that they got to a point where they had to push the vehicle, and as they were pushing, the vehicle started rolling backwards. Others escaped, but this particular victim, in an attempt to support the heavily loaded vehicle, died in the process. You can imagine with the mud and the slippery road, you can imagine that happening. The Bamenda Womb Road, which is part of the ring road, is in a very bad state, and the situation has been like this for decades. The ring road was promised to the peoples of southern Cameroon by dictator Biya in 1985, 38 years ago. And now the project is still at the level of the feasibility study. Traveling to Womb in Mencham County is said to be a nightmare given the bad state of the road.
All right, then moving on, the British High Commissioner to La Republic to Cameroon and non-resident High Commissioner to Gabon and also the Ambassador to Equatorial Guinea, Christian Denis Magloire, has come to the end of his mandate without leaving anything to take home with him, especially for the southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, who are in a present war of independence that has been declared on them and justice-seeking Ambazonians, and of course by the dictator and genocidal head of state of the colonial La Republique du Cameroon, Paul Biya. Now, this particular war has been going on for 7 years and counting. It has claimed about 50,000 innocent lives, ravaged homes and villages, sent millions on involuntary exile, many missing and thousands in jails. You already know it's a bad situation at the moment. We are asking, what legacy did Mr. Christian Denis Magloire leave behind?
What legacy? Well, Christian Denis McClure is leaving Cameroon after spending 2 years since his appointment in March 2021. In a goodbye tweet, the British diplomat noted that his success came as a result of the collective efforts of the High Commission's employees. Christian Denis McClure has been criticized by the Amazonian People's Interim Government for whining and dining with genocide colonial republic's government and the UK for endorsing the failed Grand National Dialogue, which was a mere CPDM come together over international talks like the Swiss-led process to end the 7-year-old conflict in Amazonia.
Now, let us remind you that the Southern Cameroon was the southern part of the British League of Nations mandate territory of the British Cameroons in West Africa. Now, since 1961, Cameroon forced its unholy marriage. Yes, we call it unholy because you can categorically tell that there was no legal document Treaty of Union, which is in accordance to the UNGA Resolution 1608, paragraph 5, and are seeking to restore statehood and independence from the Republic of Cameroon. British plans ran amok when John Ngufoncher, a local southern Cameroonian politician, you can say that, won the prime minister election on the 23rd of January 1959.
Well, Mr. Funcher had run on a platform calling for the independence of Southern Cameroon and possible and eventual unification with French Cameroon. To derail John Funcher's agenda, the British rallied the Southern Cameroon's opposition, led by Dr. Emmanuel Ndele, to contest John Funcher's supposedly narrow victory. The opposition took their fight to the United Nations, and with the support of the British, the idea of a plebiscite as a truer means to determine the future of Southern Cameroon was born.
Well, a country could only achieve self-government and not independence by joining an independent country. Well, this little detail was a distraction meant to give the people of Southern Cameroon the illusion that independence was a possibility, when in fact it was not. Britain essentially bet all its chips on Southern Cameroon's integration, which is by voting for either Nigeria. Now, the reason that if they lost their bet, they would let the president of the Cameroon then, Amadou Ahidjo, and Francis Charles de Gaulle have their way with Southern Cameroons.
Furthermore, they agreed that the sovereignty of Southern Cameroon would pass directly to President Ahidjo and not jointly with the leader of Southern Cameroon. Not only did the British force the issue of the plebiscite, but they also used their influence at the United Nations to restrict the plebiscite to only two choices: joining Nigeria or Cameroon, overruling what most of the people and traditional rulers of Southern Cameroon really wanted: independence.
Well, France, Britain, and the UN must bear responsibility for this unfortunate marriage, which has failed so disastrously. The extent of the UK's influence and intentions were best expressed by the choice of words for the plebiscite questions defined by the UN on the 16th of October 1959. We are still asking, why did the British abandon the Southern Cameroons? Maybe the British considered their mandated territory as a kind of liability, or probably consequently, or maybe underdevelopment in the area, because that area seems to be slow with development. But they were supposed to bring the development if the Southern Cameroonians didn't join La République du Cameroun. On the 11th of February 1961, while Northern Cameroons voted to achieve independence by joining Nigeria, Southern Cameroons voted to achieve independence by joining the Cameroons. During deliberations at the UN in April 1961 to ratify the plebiscite result, the Republic of Cameroon, supported French bloc of countries, forcefully argued against the inclusion of a clause defining the union on the basis of a federation. They cleverly argued that the UN could not be seen as forcing a sovereign nation to change its form of government from a unitary government to a federation. The UK ambassador to the UN, Andrew Cohen, conveniently endorsed Cameroon's argument in spite of his intimate knowledge and involvement in crafting the federal agreement between John Ngufoncher and Ahidjo in the period leading up to the plebiscite.
Well, the deception-packed Southern Cameroon's plebiscite of 1961, coupled with the 1972 dismantling of the Federation, was the kindling for the fires we see burning in villages and towns across the Southern Cameroons today. It is hardly a stretch to imagine that if the UK had been more judicious, transparent, and less self-serving, British Cameroons, both Northern and Southern, would have been spared a lot of headache, the lives lost and suffering over the last century and counting. The British High Commissioner leaves 3 weeks after presenting his letter of credence to his genocide counterpart, Paul Biya, on June 5, 2023, an exercise that was supposed to take place immediately after he took over office. But the COVID-19 pandemic prevented such events to take place at the presidency.
welcome back. Well, this week we told you that an Ambazonia was asked to present an identification paper, and for the simple fact that he could not present it instantly, he was shot dead by the La Republic of Cameroon terrorist forces. Well, we asked, is not having the national ID card enough reason to be killed? This is a question the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian legal minds have been challenged with since the 25th of June 2023, when another Ambazonian denizen lost his life in the hands of the trigger-happy and lawless colonial La République du Cameroon murderers called soldiers at Three Corners Fiango in Kumba local government area, just coming on the heels of further bloodbath at Ikoner and Babanki.
Well, we brought to you on Monday as well human rights lawyers barrister Amungwa Tanyi Nicodemus in an alarm said Manjong, who was tortured to near death and subjected to inhumane treatment while in the hands of the gendarmes at their headquarters, where they tied him to a mango tree and tortured him with machetes, cables, and other hard objects you can think of, which damaged his left eye. The deadly tortures were in an attempt to force statements out of his mouth. The four barbaric colonial gendarmerie officers were joined by their colleagues who tortured him continuously for 2 days on allegations that the luggage was dispatched from the Unsoboy's travel agency Bamenda to Unsoboy's travel agency Yaoundé containing a bomb, as they alleged, wherein they allege he communicated with someone or someone communicated with him about the said luggage. After his inhumane torture by officers of the region, they discovered that he was about to die and they rushed him to Service Central Researches Judiciaries, that's the SED, on June 8th, where he was detained until June 23rd, 2023. This only happened due to 3 weeks of intense intervention mounted on the authorities by barrister Amungwa Tanyi Nicodemus, human rights lawyer of Ambazonia. Extraction have joined voices as they threaten to charge the colonial La Republic gendarmes for illegal torture and detention, adding his weight to that of barrister Amungwa Nicodemus was human rights lawyer barrister Tamfu Richard.
Well, reports reached Undaunted on Monday, still confirming that the colonial military suffered a severe defeat from the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, the mountain lions of Fako County, led by General Sagat on Saturday morning of the 23rd of June, where the occupier enemy forced lost both human and material resources. The colonial soldiers, unable to face the ARF's mountain lions in retaliation, vented their anger on innocent civilians, which led to the death of some 5 civilians and several houses were burnt to ashes by the supposed La Republic to Cameroon military at Ekona Muyuka local government area.
We brought to you also a young man in his prime who has been shot point blank again by the La Republic military terrorists in the Fiango neighborhood in Kumbo, Meme County of the Atlantic zone of Amazonia, for asking an important question. This happened in broad daylight before helpless club mates immediately finished their Sunday veteran sporting outing to refresh as usual. Witnesses said the civilian was shot at close range after questioning La Republic gendarmes who stormed their meeting. He was part of a veteran club. He got up and said, "Why would you want to arrest someone without a warrant?" And the La Republic gendarme shot him in the chest for asking him any questions at all. The thugs hurried off the scene, aborting the kidnap plan they were coming to carry out. Other club members carried the lifeless body of their member to the mortuary.
Well, hundreds of Ambazonian civilians, mostly the elderly, women and children, have from one end of Ambaland to another, all in search of safety and succor. While they continue to arrive in Bambui in Tuba local government areas, they flee from what they described as mass killing of southern Cameroons by La Republic de Cameroon soldiers. While a girl of about 12 years of age said they went through hell before getting to Bambui, Tuba local government area, from Bello local government area, and Boyo County. In her words, she says, "We used push parts and we saw many dead bodies in farms, some partly eaten up by animals with some in advanced stages of decay. Many were women with farm tools. We also met some boys who helped us by showing us the way through barefoot." She narrated all this looking very tired while tears were in her eyes. Many are yet to get accommodation in Bambui and Bamenda, while others have taken or others were taken in by relatives who are bracing up for tougher days ahead as the number of mouths to feed has increased amongst other challenges.
We brought to you the Colonial La Republic CPDM Mayor of Akko Council in Dongamatun County, who has reacted to previous and recent acts of kidnapping for ransom in Buku Village, a locality in Akko local government area, labeling them as transnational crime and urging the criminal government in Yaoundé to intervene. According to the Colonial La Republic CPDM Mayor, 3 people were kidnapped between June 18th and 19th. 2023, with one victim killed following a rescue by the La Republic's colonial military operation. Since the beginning of 2023, there has been serious unrest in Akko local government area following several incursions from unidentified armed men.
Well, La Republic de Cameroon has proven to be a graveyard and not a refuge ground for Ambazonians fleeing hostilities back home. Ambazonian refugee family in the colonial economic capital of La Republic de Cameroon, Douala, is still in consternation after they drowned, after one of theirs was drowned in a river after being chased by La Republic de Cameroon gendarmerie officers. Report holds that Amazonian refugee seized himself from the hands of the La Republic de Cameroon gendarmerie elements and jumped into the river to free himself. Eyewitnesses account said while he was struggling to swim to safety, the La Republic de Cameroon gendarmes kept throwing stones at him that hit him and made him unable to swim across safely, drowning in the river in the process. While rescue teams came in and after 5 hours of search, he was put out of the river dead.
A group of boys who were after a thief mistaken the younger brother of a priest for the thief by the color of his clothes, and without questioning him, pounced on him with all types of weapons. It was only at the point where they were about to set him ablaze that one of them pleaded with the others to hear him out before lynching him. It was at this point that they learned that the wife of this young man, whom Undaunted never got the name, returns from Yaoundé late at about 1 a.m. and the victim who never allowed his wife to stay over La Republic to spend the night at the agency decided to go for his wife. So he was not a thief, but a man just going to the agency to pick up his wife. He was eventually rushed to the hospital in a very, very terrible shape. This only goes out this week as a warning to those involved in mob lynching, jungle justice, to desist from such acts, as you could indeed kill an innocent person over inaccurate allegations.
Well, the fun of Big Babanki, Fon Vubangsi Benjamin has acknowledged that the Colonial Republic of Cameroon soldiers are targeted at killing civilians. This confession is revealed in an exchange the Fon had with Mimi Mefo Info. The Fon was responding from Yaoundé, the colonial political capital of La Republique du Cameroon, from where he had been ruling his fondom. The colonial La Republic of Cameroon's government military invaded Big Babanki at the request of the Fawn, who claimed that armed gangs were committing a lot of atrocities to his people. From the 11th of June 2023, the number of human casualties is more than a dozen, with women inclusive. Well, in the font words, it says the village is in chaos now. People are scared. Just as he is speaking, he says 3 people were killed. Someone just sent him a picture of his uncle who was killed and burnt in the houses. Well, according to him, he says not everyone that has been killed is Amba. But let us be honest here. It means that the military is just targeting civilians. The rate of destruction is huge. Shops are being looted, the firm declared. But when asked what is the way forward, in his response, it says the way forward is that we cannot reverse the situation at hand. It says the military has come to stay, so the way forward is for everyone to work with the hierarchy of the military to stabilize the situation so that no innocent civilians get killed or harmed.
In the African scene, we brought to you the war in Sudan. Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces said it had seized the main base of a heavily armed police unit on Sunday as it sought an edge in its war with the army during heavy fighting in the capital, Khartoum. The RSF in a statement said it had taken full control of the large base belonging to the Central Reserve Police Southern Khartoum and posted footage of its fighters celebrating inside the facility, some removing boxes of ammunition from a warehouse.
Well, on Wednesday, Muslims gathered for Eid al-Adha prayers in Port Sudan as fighting raged on in Khartoum and West Darfur. RSF paramilitary commander General Mohammed Hamdar Daglo announced on Monday a two-day unilateral truce in advance of the Muslim holiday. Daglo expressed hope the holiday would provide an opportunity for recognition amongst the Sudanese people, acknowledging the challenging humanitarian conditions caused by the war. In their televised address on Tuesday, General Abdel Fattah el-Burhan also called for a unilateral ceasefire and called on young men to defend the country by joining the armed forces.
On a wider span in Africa, President of France Emmanuel Macron has accused Russia of being a power destabilizing Africa, noting that this has been documented by the United Nations in the Central African Republic. The French leader, in an interview on Friday with France Info RFI France 24 on the side of a Paris summit, pointed out that the Russian mercenary in Africa, the Wagner, has committed violent acts against the civil populace on the continent. This comes amidst claims by Moscow that it was developing constructive relations with Africa.
Well, on the foreign scene, we told you that the Ukrainian armed forces will receive six German IRIS-T-SLM medium-range surface-to-air missile system by the end of next year. Brigadier General Christian Frudin made a statement to this effect. Ukraine received its first IRIS-T-SLM air defense system in 2022. At the beginning of 2023, Germany handed over another anti-aircraft missile system. By the end of 2024, their number would quadruple. The Olis website puts the losses of Russian fighter jets at 36. Russia lost 93 helicopters, 9 unmanned combat aerial vehicles, and 128 reconnaissance UAVs a year into the invasion. The Ukrainian sources put the numbers even higher. They have formed the bulk of defense, and that the NATO countries have provided to the Ukrainians.
Well, with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted's weekly recap for tonight.
Well, coming up next is exclusive discussions.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal donations at abcambertv.com. For more details, call +124 028 43 111. You can email us at info@abcambertv.com.
And that president is Dr. Samuel Sako, who has remained steadfast in pursuing the armed struggle in defending our people, who has stood on the principle of our sovereignty and has not wavered from that. Let's give him kudos. And I want to piggyback on the words of the VP when he spoke earlier on this panel, where he said, we are just operating